What is going on, guys? I'm David and welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking into 5 different things which, as of today, for me are absolute red flags for these little tiny crypto micro cap projects. You know, the kind of thing you're used to seeing on this channel. Before we dive right in, I just want to address this new setting. Why is this new? Why are we changing things up? And the reason is simply that I'm going to be living in this van for the next couple of months. Don't worry, my wife and I did not divorce. We're still together. I'm just going to be on the road for a couple of months, just enjoying life on the road, traveling a bit now that the whole pandemic thing is over, and just, you know, try to mix things up. I'm not going to give you a full tour of the van because there are so many different, van tours already on YouTube that you can find for yourself, but just know this is a 2016 Sprinter that my wife and I converted last year ourselves. Everything we did ourselves, so we're pretty proud of how it turned out, and we love it very much. His name is Billy. So with this out of the way, let's just dive right in. The first thing that I'm definitely avoiding as of today is projects which are entirely Ponzis, or in other words, any project that does not have a sustainable stream of revenue. And while this might sound obvious, there are projects which are getting better and better at hiding those things, or at making it not so obvious that they don't actually have any stream of income. One that caught up pretty recently on the internet was called Steppen. It's a move to earn app. The idea was that you were purchasing virtual shoes and you could go outside and earn a certain number of their token, and then that would be the whole thing. Except the only way for the protocol to generate revenue is by selling those shoes in the first place. So the minute that nobody buys their new shoes, well, the token is obviously going to crash, and that is exactly what happened. So no matter how we spin this off, we have been trying Ponzi's for years and years, and guess what? It never works. It always ends up in a burning pile of trash, and that's exactly what we're experiencing right now with all of these crypto projects that are trying to do exactly this. So as of today, for me, if the project does not have a clear strategy to create a stream of income, or even better, already built, well, it is a hard pass for me. Next up is unrealistic promises, and that's something that we're seeing all the time with small companies too. You know, they're making forecasting and they're expecting a growth of 5,000% per year, and they're going to take over, you know, the major companies because the market is so big. So even if they manage to take only 1% of that huge market, they're going to be like a multi-billion business. And as it turns out, this only happens in 0.001% of the cases, and 1% of any market is a huge thing to accomplish. So a good example of unrealistic promises for me would be Seifu building its own blockchain, because they have announced that they were withdrawing $500,000 to proceed with the creation of the blockchain, except building the best blockchain, the one that's going to attract the most developers, is something that is hugely lucrative. And if it only costs $500,000 to make literally the best blockchain, the one that's going to beat BNB and CRO and all of these other ones which are working really, really well, or even Ethereum, there are millions of geniuses out there, and if it's only a matter of $500,000, believe me, it would have been done already, and I don't see how their blockchain is going to stand out so much, especially not with this small, tiny budget. Another good example of that would be with One Financial, and I absolutely love the team because they're trying to make things new. They're trying to bring a breath of fresh air into the space by doing things differently and by mixing up the soup. And one of the things that they did, which I absolutely applaud, is they shared their financial forecast for their Scepter token. And obviously, being the nerd that I am, I dove right into that. And keep in mind, that was before the whole Terra collapse. Now, that was before like the whole UST and Luna crumbling down, so it made sense at that time. They were going for an ever increasing price in the Scepter price, and that was interesting. At the end of the day, this turned out to be a Ponzi, obviously, in the first place, because if the price keeps going up and up and up, and there's no money that's being generated, well, of course, it means that you're always paying the existing investors with the new money that's brought in. But that's not the part which I consider to be an unrealistic promises. It's when I dove into their financial forecast. It turned out that they had forecasted a 700% return over their high-risk fun. Now, there are a few people in the world who are able to make that kind of return year after year. But believe me, those guys are either working for themselves and they're billionaires, or they're working for venture capitals and private equities, and they are getting paid millions and millions of dollars a year. If you are able to make that kind of thing happen, believe me, you are not working on this type of small project. So just the fact that they're publishing this, the fact that these are the numbers that they're sharing with the investors, for me is a red flag, because it's way too optimistic. It's highly unrealistic that they're going to achieve that. So all in all, it's okay for projects to be bullish, it's okay for project owners to be ballsy, I applaud that, but you still have to remain within the realm of possibilities. You know, not every one of your move is going to be a moonshot, that's for sure. Next up, the third thing that I'm definitely avoiding nowadays is bad paid marketing. And I have to be a bit more precise about this, because this one is also subjective. There are certain types of marketing that attract a certain kind of investor, and as soon as you're advertising your project as a get-rich-quick thing, or a, easy solution to all of your problem, well, it kind of sounds like a get-rich-quick scheme, and as it turns out, those are always, BS. A good example of that is Eterna, and it's not because it's a bad project, because as it turns out, I had a video 90% edited, ready to go before anyone else had talked about the project. I picked up on it pretty early. At that time, they had not yet published their new white paper, they had not yet published, all of the information that we have today, and nobody had even talked about it at that time. However, as I was getting through with my video, a streak of new videos started coming out, and it was by a certain group of people, which I'm not going to name, but which may or may not have been exposed by CoffeeZilla, as people will promote any project so long as they are paid. Now, is it necessarily a bad thing? No, it doesn't mean that all the projects that they're talking about are bad per se, but simply the fact that you're ready to associate your project with the other projects on these channels kind of gives it a bad rep. And as it turns out, the people who are subbed to these channels that I'm talking about are definitely people looking for get-rich-quick schemes. That's never a good thing. So even in this case, if Eterno had very good ideas, a very interesting approach on, different problems, I ended up deciding to trash this video altogether, which kind of breaks my heart because, making a video is a lot of work. Next up is projects with a lack of innovation or simply forks. The idea with crypto is that you're always trying to predict what will be the next trend, because at the end of the day, that's how you get the moonshots. It's about finding those projects at a very early stage that have not yet blown up and that people end up finding a bit later, and then you're already in there, and that's when you end up with these huge gains. However, with forks, they're always trying to emulate one of these huge successes that has already happened. The likeliness of this hype happening again is always null. And it doesn't really exist. Once investors have made their money or missed the boat, it's too late. So all of these forks, all of these projects, which are just recycling old ideas, sometimes mixing existing ideas together to kind of make something that we've all already seen, these end up never really being great investments. Of course, there are exceptions, if you're forking somebody's project to bring it onto another chain and that project has revenue, well, it's different. But in most cases, when you're just copying people's ideas or rebranding them or just putting new JPEGs on those, well, we all know how this ends up going. Just think of all the node projects that ended up being nothing, just creating nothing and then making promises and doing nothing about them. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. And last but not least, the thing that I'm definitely avoiding in 2022 and going forward is entirely undoxxed devs. And I'm saying entirely because a good KYC to me can be sufficient in terms of comfort. There are so many ways that devs can go about protecting their identity while making decent projects that there's really no reason not to get doxed or KYC'd at some point in the process. Now, we all know there are different types of KYCs, there are different qualities of doxing, so that's always something to keep in mind. But at the very minimum, there has to be somebody who knows who you are, who can do something if you decide to just rock the project. And that's it. Those are the 5 things that I'm most definitely avoiding going forward in the crypto space. And I'm sure if you're watching this channel that you have your own reflexes, and I would love to know what are the red flags that you're definitely trying to avoid in 2022. So let me know down in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, well, I'll be publishing plenty more. Once again, this is the new setting. Hope you like it. Hope the quality of the sound is equally as good as it was before. If not, well, I'll be back home eventually in the fall. So thank you so much for being around, and I'll see you in the next one.